Welcome back. So there are growing calls for the downsizing of a cabinet and hiring of qualified ministers. This comes after President Cyril Ramaphosa prepares to announce he is a government of national unity, that cabinet as well, with the ANC only securing 40% of the vote in the recent elections. The dynamics have shifted significantly. This means accommodating the GNU partners will be key, adding complexity to an already challenging task. Let's now unpack this with the director of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Prof, good morning. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. How should we understand the phrasing of qualified ministers, considering that the ANC and the DA, which is part of the GNU, have a different understanding of what merit-based appointment means?
Thank you very much, Adrian, for having me, and good morning to your viewers. You know, Adrian, the question you're asking is a very critical one on two fronts. One, we have a government of national unity, at least we are told that is what it is, and there is seemingly a misunderstanding between with the ANC, which is leading that GNU, and the DA, which is one of the main partners in terms of understanding the contents of the document they signed. On the one hand, we have the ANC appreciating other parties that come on board, including the Patriotic Alliance of Gaten Mackenzie. Then, of course, at the same time, you also have the likes of Helen Zille crying foul, saying that they were not properly consulted. So if you don't understand the documents that are the founding documents of the GNU to start with, how are you going to agree then on the other issues, including the question you're asking about qualified and not qualified ministers? Because under normal circumstances, you would expect that when you appoint someone in a particular ministry, you first have to check that person's CV and then understand that the person is in fact a right fit for that particular ministry. Even though ministers are political heads, but then they have to understand what is happening in their department. Instead of just relying on the technocrats and then taking whatever they've decided and then presenting it to the cabinet. You have to know what you are doing. Then we'll watch the space and see if the ANC will continue with the cadre deployment policy and apply it correctly this time around, or if the DA will in fact hold the ANC hostage and say, you cannot appoint this minister because of ABCD, you should rather appoint so and so. Then we'll see how things will pan out. And also when other members join this GNU, and then it will be very interesting to see how Ramaphosa is going to manage that particular situation.
Yeah, the complexities around that, very interesting. Even if you look at, is it section 17 of the Statement of Intent from the Government of National Unity, whilst recognizing the President's prerogative to appoint members of the executive, such appointments should be done in consultation with leaders of the respective parties and of members considered for appointment. We will be speaking to Mdumiseni Ntuli, the ANC chief whip, a bit later on. But the question for me around this is, what does consultation look like? Does consultation mean that if there is a member of the GNU that is opposed to the appointment of a certain individual, it means that that individual will no longer be appointed? Yesterday I was raising the point with Sanet as well, our analyst, that the ANC is used to consultation of its alliance partners, but there's no statement of intent that they have signed. And here you have a statement of intent that has been signed by the various political parties that are part of the GNU. So what does consultation look like?
Okay, first of all, let us look at this issue from a constitutional point of view. Section 84 of the Constitution is clear on the powers that are vested in the president, any sitting president, not just President Ramaphosa, who is the current president. Any president will invoke a Section 84 when appointing ministers. That is why in the past, some of us have had issues when courts had to force a sitting president to explain himself why there was a cabinet reshuffling. Yep. But then that's a story for another day. The point is, Section 84 gives the president, the sitting president, powers to decide who to appoint. Who can be appointed a minister today, Adrian, and then the president can sack you tomorrow without violating the law. But where consultation comes in is that whatever decision you make as the president, then there must be consensus. All along, what has been happening is that the ANC has been consulting COSATU and SACP and SANCO as tripartite members of this alliance. But then even there have been issues. You recall, for instance, that when the ANC was toying with the idea of having a coalition with the DA, the SACP and COSATU were not happy. They felt that they were not properly consulted, whatever that means. Now, in this case, it will be even more complex because we have many political parties forming part of this GNU, which means, therefore, the consultation process will take a bit longer. For me, consultation means that you have to consult, explain your decision, your suggestion or proposal to the collective, have consensus, have debate, and then once you agree, then we proceed. Whether they will do that by a simple majority, whether they will need a 2/3 majority, I don't really know. But the section you just referred to, the clause you referred to, Clause 17, is the bone of contention. That is the one that Helen Zille cited, in fact, when she said that the ANC cannot just welcome anyone willy-nilly without subscribing to that clause of the statement of intent, because they agreed in principle that this is the process that will be followed. So this consultation process then will have to be defined and redefined so that everyone who is a member of the collective understand it, and then, of course, on the sideline, taking note of Section 84, as I said, because that is the guiding principle which says that the president has a final say on whatever happens after all those consultation processes have taken place.
Yeah. Finally, do you think that there's a possibility at all of the GNU collapsing, considering the different interpretations of the sections that these political parties have signed to, and what it would mean, and also take into consideration that, if you remember on Friday, was it Friday last week, on Thursday last week, the EFF saying that they wanted to speak to the president of the ANC, and they were looking at perhaps maybe getting the position of a Speaker of the National Assembly, which they lost out to, Togo Didiza, of course, and then also that they must have some of their members being appointed in the various committees of Parliament. Does that look like a party that is willing to be part of a GNU, although from a legislative perspective?
First of all, we have to ask the question, this government of national unity, was it formed with good intentions or with ill intentions? The answer you get from there will then determine the way forward. If I join a coalition and then I already have things in the bag that I say, this is what I'm presenting on the table, and then those requests are dismissed outright, like the likes of Kwete Mantashe, for instance, were saying that there is no way that they will give the speaker position to the EFF. So that is not how you negotiate. When you negotiate, especially from a weak position, given that the ANC, as you indicated, got 40% and not the 65% it got in 1994, it means that you cannot then stand your ground and say this is what's going to happen no matter what. So it means that you have to negotiate, you have to lobby, you have to do all other things like a party that has only one seat, simply because you are negotiating from a weak position. I think these parties must understand that first and foremost, and then find one another as these negotiations continue. Because if you claim that we have more numbers than I do, then it means that this government of national unity might in fact be like a stillborn baby and is going to die a natural death, simply because you don't agree on matters of principle, like Helen Zille has already started citing this Clause 17 of the Statement of Intent. How many more disagreements will be there? When you appoint Minister X and I want Minister Y, then who is the deciding voice? According to the Constitution, like I said, it will be the president. How will that affect the GNU? So we'll just wait and see if our leaders are politically mature, and then we'll put the country's interests first, not theirs.
Thank you so much. That is Professor Bheki Mngomezulu from the Nelson Mandela University.